High praise for the country of Taiwan for its efforts to preserve religious liberty. This from religious freedom activists who call the country a bright spot in a world where religious freedom is deteriorating. President of the International Religious Freedom Secretariat, Nadine Maenza, returned from Taiwan earlier this month, and she joins us tonight with more. Nadine, great to be with you as always.
Thank you.
I know you describe a robust democracy and, as we just mentioned, remarkable conditions for religious freedom. Can you tell us more about your impressions?
Yes, I mean, it's a place where people accept each other with deep theological differences. So we're not talking about tolerance here. Tolerance is putting up with something you don't like. They actually really embrace each other, and they've developed this culture of religious freedom that is in stark contrast to the Chinese Communist Party that is committing genocide, of course, against the Uyghur Muslims, persecuting Christians, Tibetans, Falun Gong, and others. But what we're seeing in Taiwan that, has overcome occupation and authoritarian rule to develop this really vibrant, robust democracy that prioritizes religious freedom in a really beautiful way. Such a beautiful place. Physically, the people are welcoming, and the way that they care for one another and their religious freedom it's really stunning. It's so impressive to see in person.
Yeah, and I know in a recent article you mentioned the ease in which different religious communities interact with each other in Taiwan. Can you tell us more about, this culture of respect for people with different beliefs?
Yeah, it was so interesting that the Catholic Church we were visiting, there was a Buddhist nun that was weeding his garden. They just have this really close relationship. You would see this large Buddhist humanitarian organization that rebuilds, houses of worship immediately upon doing humanitarian work around the world, and even an Islamic boarding school. And so you see all of this really beautiful representing one another. And I know that the Presbyterian Church of Taiwan has played a key role in really fighting for democracy, standing up for democracy. And even though Christians and Protestants are like 5.5% of the population, Catholics like 1.3, these are small amounts, but they're thanked for the role they played in that and really respected. And so you have this beautiful culture that we can learn from. How did it move from authoritarian to this? How did they prioritize religious freedom and create a society where everyone is accepted? And we can learn from this and hopefully spread this in other places. And it's, like I said, such a stark contrast to China. And it's a threat to China. Freedom, Taiwan in and of itself, of course, is not a threat to China, but their freedom's a threat.
Yeah, and I know you also mentioned something else I want to touch on is that Taiwan really has won the respect of religious freedom advocates on a global level. What other nations have their eye on Taiwan as a model for their own blueprints? What do you think?
Well, that's a really good question, and I don't know if countries look at other countries that way, which is why it's important for us to be able to learn from countries like Taiwan and other places that are bright spots for religious freedom, and be able to share those kinds of information, what they do in education, how they bring religious communities together. What was it about building a democracy that brought together all the different faiths? And that was one of the reasons I visited, because I wanted to understand. I asked a lot of questions. What was it like before it moved out of authoritarian rule? How it all played out, and those are the kind of things I think we haven't researched enough that would be really good for the U.S. and for those of us who value religious freedom to be able to share to those countries that are working. And there are several countries around the world right now working to improve their conditions, and they could really use that kind of information.
Absolutely, and there's so many bright spots in Taiwan, but I'm wondering, what's your biggest concern for the country?
It really is this threat. The Chinese Defense Minister, Wei Feng, just told the U.S. Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, that Taiwan is at the core of Chinese core interests and was a red line that must not be crossed. He said, literally to the Secretary of Defense, the resolution of Taiwan is a matter for the Chinese people. No external force has the right to interfere. So China is definitely drawing a red line. And of course, the U.S. has been deliberate, and had really, they call it like a deliberate ambiguity, policy of deliberate ambiguity with Taiwan as a way to not push the needle or the envelope in that could cause an invasion, but at the same time giving the people of Taiwan the opportunity to make decisions for themselves. So it's a really difficult line to walk, and it's super important that the U.S. gets this right.
And Nadine, before I let you go, I'm curious, what else is on your radar? What else are you following?
Well, we're following another similar situation. A bright spot, northeast Syria has the best religious freedom conditions in the Middle East, where Christians, Yazidis, others can all participate in government, where women are half the leaders. And Turkey is threatening to invade, has been bombing just relentless, killed 15, I believe it's up to 15 now, civilians, bombed hospitals, in fact, just bombed the global coalition to defeat ISIS and the Syrian Democratic Forces base. So there are U.S. forces on that base, killing some anti-terrorist specialists. That all they do on that base is work to defeat ISIS. So last time Turkey invaded northeast Syria and took part of the land, they committed atrocities that were documented by Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, lots of documentation, where they targeted Christians, Yazidis, Kurdish, especially women, with rape, kidnapping, killing, destroyed religious sites, destroyed churches, destroyed Yazidi shrines. So we would expect the same sort of conditions if Turkey invades again. It's so important that the U.S. stand up against that.
Absolutely. And Nadine, thank you so much for speaking to us about all of this. We appreciate it. Great to get your insights as always.
Thanks for having me.